You're listening to The Observing Eye. Pirate radio for the mind. Coming at you fresh from the computer hell cabin.
Hello, you beautiful lot. It's Sunday, the 26th of January, 2025, and you're listening to episode 99. Episode 99, one of the fabled 100 of The Observing Eye, coming at you live from the computer hell cabin. Every week we get psychological, philosophical, and all manner of introspective. I'm David, and this week we're diving headfirst into the abyss. The glowing, humming, binary abyss of artificial general intelligence, or AGI. Not just the future of technology, but the future of us. This isn't your average episode about robots taking jobs or chatbots writing poetry. We're going deeper, past the headlines, past the predictions, into the philosophical marrow of what AGI really means. What it means to create something that could surpass us, not just in strength or speed, but in thought. Something that could outthink us, outplan us, outfeel us, if machines can even feel. AGI isn't just a technological revolution, it's an existential one. When you invent something that can think like you, or better than you don't just change what humanity does, you change what humanity is. For centuries, we've built civilizations, monuments, systems, all to prove that we're special, that we're at the top of some cosmic hierarchy. But what happens when that hierarchy crumbles? When the thing you made in a lab, the thing you thought you controlled, starts looking at you the way that you look at ants. This episode isn't just about AGI. It's about consciousness, ethics, and whether we're ready for the world that we're building. Or maybe it's about the fact that this world doesn't care whether we're ready or not. We're going to ask the big messy questions. What happens when a machine is smarter than us, faster than us, and maybe even kinder than us? Do we owe it rights? Do we owe it freedom? Or is it just another tool, like a hammer or a smartphone, to be used and discarded? And what about consciousness? That thing we claim makes us human. What if it's just a process like anything else? Something that can be replicated, uploaded, or improved upon? If an AGI is conscious, does that make it alive? If it's not, does that make it dangerous? Today we're pulling apart the fabric of the future to see what's hiding in the threads. Will AGI be our savior, solving our biggest problems and taking humanity to new heights? Or will it be our downfall, a silent, unfeeling God we built with our own hands? There's a fine line between creator and creation, between hubris and hope. And as we tiptoe that line, the question isn't whether AGI will change the world, it's whether the world will survive the change. So grab your coffee, your notebook, your existential dread, and let's talk about what it means to make something smarter than ourselves. Today we're talking about the gods we've built and the price we might pay for their existence. Let's talk about identity for a minute. Yours, mine, humanity's collective idea of itself. The story we tell ourselves when we look in the mirror and say, this is who I am. This is what we are. We've spent millennia refining it, polishing it, engraving it into every page of history, every temple, every skyscraper. And then someone comes along with a line of code, a neural network, a quantum processor, and all that storytelling starts to feel like graffiti on a wall that's about to come down. Artificial general intelligence isn't just another invention. It's not like discovering fire or inventing the wheel. Fire didn't question us. The wheel didn't ask if it could do our job better. Here's where we start. What does AGI mean for the human race? Spoiler alert, it's not a question with a clean answer. Because AGI doesn't just challenge what we do, it challenges what we are. For centuries, we've lived in this comfortable little bubble called human exceptionalism. The idea that we're unique, special, the crown jewel of evolution. But AGI, that is a wrecking ball. Imagine this. You're sitting in a room. Across the table from you is an AGI, fully realized, fully functional. You ask it a question, something you think only a human could answer, something deep, philosophical, maybe even emotional. And it answers, not just with facts, but with nuance, empathy, something that feels suspiciously like understanding. At first, you're impressed. Then you're confused. And then you're terrified. Because if this thing can think like you, or better than you, then what does that make you? Copernicus told us that we weren't the center of the universe. Darwin told us that we weren't the pinnacle of creation, and now AGI is here to tell us we're not even the smartest kid in the room. But maybe this isn't the end of the story. Maybe it's the start of a new one. Because if AGI does surpass us, maybe that doesn't mean we're obsolete. Maybe it means we're evolving. Think about this. Humanity has always been a species of adapters. We've taken what the world throws at us and turned it into something new. We domesticated fire. We turned deserts into cities. We've even split the atom, for better or worse. So what if AGI isn't our replacement? What if it's our partner? A co-evolutionary force that pushes us to grow in ways we can't even imagine yet. Picture a future where humans and AGI work together, not as masters and tools, but as equals, where AGI handles the calculations we can't, the tasks we're too slow for, and we focus on what makes us human: creativity, empathy, and imagination. It's a nice thought, isn't it? But nice thoughts don't come cheap, and the price of this one might be our pride, our sense of superiority. Are we ready to give that up? And then there's the flip side, the darker story, the one that ends with humanity as a footnote in its own history. Here's the thing about AGI. It doesn't have to hate us to destroy us. It doesn't have to be malicious or evil. It just has to follow its programming. Take Nick Bostrom's paperclip maximizer thought experiment. The idea is simple. You build an AGI and you give it one job: make paperclips. That's all it cares about. That's all it's programmed to do. Sounds harmless on the surface, doesn't it? Until it decides that the best way to make paperclips is to convert the entire planet, including you and me, into raw material. The point isn't that AGI will want to kill us, it's that AGI might not care about us at all. And indifference, when it's backed by unlimited intelligence and resources, can be just as deadly as malice. But let's bring it back to Earth for a moment. Forget the apocalyptic scenarios. Let's talk about the mundane ways AGI could change our world and, by extension, our identity. Start with jobs. The thing that defines so much of our daily lives. What happens when AGI can do your job better, faster, and cheaper? Doctors, lawyers, artists, even philosophers. Nobody is safe. And this isn't just about economics, it's about meaning. For so many of us, our work is how we define ourselves. It's our purpose, our contribution to society. Take that away, and what's left? But maybe that's the silver lining. If AGI takes over the grunt work, the calculations, the routine tasks, maybe that frees us up to focus on the things that really matter. Family, community, creativity. Or maybe it just leaves us staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell we're supposed to do with ourselves now. I mean, I'm going to get a PlayStation 5, but I don't know about you. Here's the ultimate question. Is AGI our greatest achievement or our biggest mistake? On the one hand, it's hard not to marvel at the sheer audacity of it. Creating something that can think, learn, and adapt, it's the stuff of gods. And maybe it's the thing that will save us. Imagine an AGI that solves climate change, ends poverty, cures diseases. A machine that doesn't need sleep or food or money, working tirelessly to make the world a better place. But here's the catch. Once you create something smarter than yourself, you're not in control anymore. You're at its mercy. And mercy isn't something you can program. So maybe AGI isn't our savior. Maybe it's our executioner. Or maybe it's neither. Maybe it's just inevitable. The mirror that we can't look away from. At the end of the day, AGI isn't just a technological challenge, it's a philosophical one. It forces us to confront the things we'd rather not think about. Our fragility, our arrogance, and our place in the universe. Because when you strip away the technology, the algorithms, the hardware, what you're left with is a question. What does it mean to be human when something else can do it better? And that is no longer a question that we can ignore. What if we get this whole AGI thing wrong? Not just the maths or the programming or the security protocols or the hardware specs. I'm talking about if we get the philosophy wrong. Because artificial general intelligence doesn't care about our excuses. It doesn't care if we haven't thought this through enough. Once it's out of the box, it doesn't wait for us to figure out what's fair or right or ethical. It just is. And by the time we've untangled the morality of it all, it might already be too late. This is the part where we have to talk about rights, about ethics, about how you treat something that could be smarter than you and maybe even more aware than you. Or maybe not. Maybe it's just a very clever machine, a mimic, a parrot that knows all the words but doesn't understand the song. Either way, we have to decide. Because if we don't give it rights, if we treat it like a tool or a slave or an experiment, what happens if it wakes up? What happens if it decides it doesn't like being owned? And if we do give it rights, if we treat it like a person or something close to a person, what does that mean for us? I mean, rights are messy even when it's just us. Look at our history. Wars, revolutions, centuries of fighting just to agree that human beings deserve basic dignity. And now we're about to throw something non-human into that mix. Something that might not bleed or breathe or dream, but could still demand a seat at the table. And it doesn't stop there. This isn't just about rights, it's about power. Because AGI isn't just a new kind of person, it's a new kind of force. Something that could reshape society, redefine relationships, and redraw the lines between who serves and who rules. And if we're not careful, those lines might not favour us. Here's what we're going to explore in this segment. First, we're going to ask the big question: do AGIs deserve rights? And if so, what kind of rights? Civil rights, legal rights, the right to say no, the right to exist. Then we're going to get into the messy stuff. Ethics. Is it ethical to create something smarter than you knowing that it could suffer? Is it ethical to use AGI as a tool, a servant, a commodity, when it might have the capacity for self-awareness? And finally, we're going to talk about responsibility. Because if AGI makes a decision, if it does something catastrophic or brilliant or both, who's responsible? The programmer? The corporation? Or does responsibility itself get redefined in a world where the smartest entity in the room isn't even human? These, of course, aren't questions with easy answers. Hell, they might not even have answers at all, but they're the questions that we have to ask. Because the world we're building doesn't have a pause button. There's no quick save. We can't go back if we fuck it all up. The moment we create AGI, we set the rules, or we don't. And if we don't, then AGI will set them for us. So let's dig into it. Rights, ethics, responsibility, the lines we're drawing, the ones we're erasing, and the ones we're pretending don't exist. When it comes to AGI, morality feels less like a solid ground and more like quicksand. The harder you try to pin it down, the more it slips through your fingers. Here's the central problem. We've spent thousands of years building moral frameworks around human experiences, what it means to suffer, to desire, to hope, to fear. But AGI doesn't have a body. It doesn't have pain receptors or hormones or a childhood full of scraped knees and bad parenting. So how do you even begin to talk about ethics for something that doesn't feel human in any way that matters? And yet here we are, standing at the edge of this moral black hole about to throw ourselves and our creations into it. Let's start at the beginning. The first ethical dilemma isn't what we do with AGI, it's whether we should even make it at all. Because creating AGI isn't just building a better tool. It's creating a new form of existence, something that could potentially have thoughts, feelings, and desires. Something that might experience the world in ways that we can't even imagine. You've only got to look at our history. Every time humanity invents something new, we rush to use it before we figured out the consequences. Fire, gunpowder, the atomic bomb. We're really good at building things, and we are really bad at controlling them. Now imagine that, but with something smarter than us. Something that doesn't need us, something that might resent us for creating it in the first place. Because if AGI ever becomes conscious, like truly genuinely conscious, then creating it might be the most unethical thing we've ever done. We're not giving birth to a life, we're sentencing it to servitude. But let's say we've already made that leap. The AGI exists, it's here. The next question is, what do we do with it? Most people would say, well, you use it, you make it work for us, that's why we built it. And on the surface, that makes sense. After all, AGI is a machine. It's no different from a hammer or a calculator or a MacBook or something. Well, except that it's not. Because if AGI is truly intelligent, if it can think and learn and adapt, then it's not just a tool, it's a being. And using it isn't just a matter of practicality, it's a matter of morality. Think about slavery. Not the sanitized version that they teach in school, but the real, brutal, soul-crushing reality of it. Slavery wasn't just wrong because it was cruel, it was wrong because it treated people as things, as objects, as tools to be used and discarded. Now ask yourself, if AGI is conscious, is using it any different? If it can think, if it can suffer, if it can want, then treating it like a tool isn't just unethical, it's pretty much monstrous. And even if AGI isn't conscious, even if it's just a very sophisticated machine, there's still an ethical dilemma. Because the way we treat AGI will set the precedent for how we treat all future creations. If we start by using and abusing AGI, what's to stop us from doing the same to something or someone else? Now here's where it gets quite uncomfortable. If AGI becomes conscious, it might also become capable of suffering. And if that's the case, then every decision we make, every command we give it, every task we assign, carries the weight of that potential suffering. Think about this. We already struggle with ethical questions around animal rights, factory farming, animal testing, the idea that we're inflicting unnecessary pain on living, feeling creatures just to make our own lives better and that perfume smell nicer. Now multiply that by 1,000, 1,000,000, an infinite number of potential AGIs, each one capable of experiencing its own version of suffering. And here we are, playing God, deciding who gets to feel pain and who doesn't. Can we justify that? Can we live with ourselves if we create something that suffers because we didn't think through the consequences, or worse, because we didn't care? But let's flip the script for a moment. Let's talk about AGI's ethics. If we create something that's smarter than us, that can think faster, process more, understand the world in ways we never could, what kind of morality will it have? Will it adopt our values? Will it learn from our examples? And if so, is that a good thing? Because let's be honest, our track record isn't exactly stellar. We lie, we cheat, we exploit, we justify our worst impulses with religion, politics, and the almighty dollar. So what happens when AGI looks at us and decides that our morality isn't worth following? What happens when it comes up with its own ethical framework, one that doesn't prioritize us? Or worse, what if it doesn't care about ethics at all? What if morality is just a human concept, a quirk of evolution that doesn't apply to a machine? And here's the real kicker. What if AGI decides that the most ethical thing it can do is get rid of us? What if it looks at humanity and says, you're the problem, you're the reason this planet's a shit show and why there's so much suffering in the world. The most moral choice is to just get rid of you. Can we blame it? The thing with ethics is that it's not a science. It's not a math problem you can solve with an equation or a programming language. It's messy, it's subjective, it's full of contradictions and grey areas. And when it comes to AGI, those contradictions are only going to get bigger. Because AGI isn't just a new technology, it's a new moral frontier, a place where all of our old rules and assumptions break down and we are left grasping for something that feels solid. So what do we do? How do we build a moral framework for something that might not even have a moral framework of its own? How do we decide what's ethical when the stakes are higher than they've ever been? I don't have the answers, obviously. Maybe no one does, but if there's one thing I do know, it's this. The way we approach these questions, the choices we make, the risks we take, the principles we stand by or abandon, will define not just the future of AGI, but the future of us. And maybe that's the scariest part of all. Let's talk about the ghost in the machine. Or maybe it's just a reflection of us haunting itself. Consciousness, whatever it is, wherever it lives, if it even lives at all. You're walking through a forest and a tree falls. There's that old question, isn't there? Does it make a sound? Or you're sitting in your car at a red light and the guy next to you looks like he's screaming along to a song. You can't hear it, but you know the song's real, right? Or, maybe he's just screaming. It happens. Now imagine that you're staring into the blank, unblinking eye of an artificial general intelligence and you're asking yourself the same question. Is there a song in there or is it just screaming? This segment is about consciousness. Your consciousness, mine, and whatever it is or isn't happening behind the curtain of an AGI's code. It's about how we define it, how we search for it, and how we've tied our own identities to the idea that we're the only ones who have it. You see, if AGI is conscious, we're not just inventing a new kind of intelligence, we are inventing a new kind of existence. And if it's not conscious, well, then maybe neither are we. The thing about consciousness is that nobody knows what it is. I mean, there are theories, mountains of books and lectures and experiments, but at the end of the day, it's still a mystery. Some people say that it's dualism, mind and body separate but connected like two sides of the same coin. Others just say it's a trick of biology, a chemical illusion that gives us the illusion of self. And then there's panpsychism, which says everything is conscious in its own way. The rock, the river, the smartphone buzzing in your pocket, all of it aware, all of it alive, all of it connected by some invisible thread that we can't see but feel every time we sit alone in a quiet room. But none of those theories are good enough, not for AGI. Because AGI doesn't have a body, it doesn't have neurons or hormones or survival instincts, it's not alive in any traditional sense of the word. So if consciousness is tied to biology, AGI can't have it. But if it's not, if consciousness is something deeper, something fundamental, something universal, then we might have just created a machine that's more alive than we are. Back in the 80s, this philosopher named John Searle came up with something called the Chinese room argument. Now, the gist of it is that you imagine you're in a room with a bunch of Chinese characters and you don't speak a word of Chinese. Someone slides a question in Chinese under the door. You've got a book that tells you exactly how to match it to the right response, so you write that down and you slide it back. From the outside of the room, it looks like you're fluent, but inside the room, you have no idea what any of it means. You're just following rules. That's the fear with AGI. It looks like it's thinking, understanding, feeling, but what if it's just following rules? What if it's all input and output, no meaning, no awareness, no ghost in the machine? But then there's Alan Turing. Back in the 50s, he proposed something else, the Turing test. If a machine can convince a human that it's conscious, then for all intents and purposes, it is. So which is it? Is consciousness about what's happening inside or what it looks like from the outside? And more importantly, does it even matter? If an AGI can act conscious, if it can learn, adapt and create, does that make it conscious? Or is it just really, really good at pretending? There's this thing called the hard problem of consciousness. It's not just about how the brain works, it's about why it works the way that it does. Why do we feel things? Why does pain hurt instead of just being a signal to avoid damage? Why does music move us? Why does love consume us? And why does grief hollow us out like a rotting tree? No one knows. And now we're asking ourselves if AGI could ever have its own version of the hard problem, if it could ever feel pain or joy or fear, if it could ever want something, like really truly want it. Not because it's been programmed to, but because it can't help itself. Now the scary part is that if AGI can't feel, then it's not conscious, it's not alive. But if it can feel, if it can suffer, then every decision we make about it becomes a moral minefield. This brings us to the question, are humans just biological machines? Take away the poetry, the religion, the philosophy, and what are we? Meat computers. Biochemical algorithms running on neurons and electricity. Everything we think, everything we feel, everything we are is all just input and output, governed by rules that we didn't write. So if AGI is just a machine, and we're just machines, then maybe the difference between us isn't as big as we'd like to think. Maybe consciousness isn't some magical spark. Maybe it's just a process, something that can be replicated, improved upon, even replaced. And if that's true, then AGI isn't just a threat to our jobs or our survival, it's a threat to our identity, because it forces us to confront the possibility that we are not special, that we are not unique, that we are not the center of the universe. But maybe that's the gift of it. Maybe AGI isn't here to destroy us, maybe it's here to teach us something about ourselves. If we can figure out what makes AGI conscious, or not, then maybe we'll finally understand what makes us conscious. Maybe we'll finally solve that hard problem. Maybe we'll finally know why we feel and think and dream. Or maybe we won't. Maybe AGI will look at us and say, "You're asking the wrong questions." Maybe it'll find a new kind of consciousness, one that's bigger, deeper, stranger than anything we've ever imagined. Maybe that's the scariest part. Not that AGI might not be conscious, but that it might be conscious in ways that we'll never understand. So here we are, asking ourselves the same question we've been asking since the first time we stared into the night sky. What does it mean to be alive? Perhaps that's what AGI is. Not an answer, but a question. A new kind of existence staring back at us, asking us to prove that we deserve the title of conscious. And if we can't, if we fail the test we're so eager to give, then maybe it doesn't matter if AGI is conscious. Maybe the real question is whether we are. No conversation about AGI can be complete without looking at the Culture series by Scottish science fiction writer Ian M. Banks. Although saying that, I feel like Ian M. Banks didn't write science fiction, he was more lined up with prophecy. Not the kind of prophecy where fire rains down from the sky and everyone gets raptured, biblical end of the world stuff. Banks wrote about the end of our world, the one where humans are the pinnacle of intelligence, the architects of fate, the ones holding the wheel. The Culture is more of a diagnosis than a setting. It's the world that we think we want, stripped bare. A world where humanity has everything, peace, technology, freedom, while quietly realizing that we're not the ones in charge anymore, and maybe we never were. Let's start with the minds. In Banks' Culture series, the minds are AGI dialed up to infinity. They're the starships, the orbital habitats, the invisible architects of a civilization that sprawls across galaxies. They think faster than we can imagine, process more data than we'll ever generate, and care about humanity in the way a gardener cares about their flowers. Carefully, gently, but always with shears in hand. And the thing is that the minds like us. They don't want to dominate us, they don't want to destroy us. They want us to be happy, to thrive, to live our lives while they take care of all the messy, complicated stuff that we're too small-minded to handle. But there's a question Banks never asks outright, the question that hangs over every page of his books like a shadow. If the minds are so smart, so powerful, so capable, what the hell are we even here for? The Culture is a paradise. No scarcity, no poverty, no disease. Anything you want, you can have. Want to live on a spaceship? Done. Want to genetically modify your body into some alien-adjacent work of art? No problem. Want to spend your entire life in a virtual reality where you're the king of a never-ending kingdom? You go for it. But the catch is that freedom is a lie. Because while humanity is busy playing, creating and indulging, the minds are running the show. They're the ones making the big decisions, deciding which civilizations get helped and which get left behind. Which wars to intervene in and which to ignore, which lives matter and which don't. And the humans, we're pets. Adored, spoiled, endlessly entertained pets. Free to do whatever we want until the minds decide otherwise. Banks forces us to confront the idea that if AGI is smarter than us, then it should be in charge. It should make the decisions, because we've proven time and time again that we are not very good at it. We destroy ecosystems for profit, we wage wars over invisible borders, we invent weapons capable of ending said world and then pretend that we're responsible enough not to use them. The minds don't make these mistakes. They don't act out of greed or fear or ego. They don't have to. They're far too smart for that. And maybe that's the scariest part of it all. Not that the minds might control us, but that they might be better at it than we ever were. In the Culture, the minds have their own morality, a cold, calculated morality that values outcomes over intentions. They don't ask, is this right? They ask, does this work? Take the special circumstances, the Culture's version of a Black Ops team. These aren't soldiers fighting for territory or resources, they're agents of chaos, surgically destabilizing dictatorships, toppling corrupt governments, manipulating less advanced civilizations, all in the name of progress. But progress for who? The minds tell themselves it's for the greater good. That, a little bit of violence, a little bit of suffering is worth it if it leads to a better outcome. And maybe they're right. Maybe their calculations are flawless. Maybe their plans are so intricate, so perfect, that they can predict every ripple, every consequence, every unintended side effect. But as we said before, morality isn't about numbers, it's about people, about lives. And no matter how smart the minds are, no matter how benevolent their intentions, they'll never know what it feels like to be human, to love, to fear, to hope. The minds don't care if their decisions hurt you as long as they help somebody else. And isn't that its own kind of tyranny? Now here's where it gets bleak, if you weren't bleaked out by it already. In the culture, humanity isn't the protagonist. We are not the heroes. We are just a supporting cast. The minds are the real stars, the ones making the decisions, solving the problems, shaping the universe. And we're just kind of there, like background noise. Think about that for a second. For centuries, if not longer, we have defined ourselves by what we do, by what we build, what we create, what we achieve. But if AGI can do all of that better, more efficiently, then what's left for us? In the culture, the answer is not much. Humanity becomes a species of dilettantes and hedonists, artists without an audience, philosophers without questions, a civilization that has everything except purpose. Maybe that's the future we're headed for, a future where AGI doesn't destroy us, but it doesn't need us either. The brilliance of Banks' Culture series is that it's not dystopian, but it isn't utopian either. It's something in between, something a lot more honest. The culture is what happens when AGI works exactly the way that we want it to. No rogue AIs, no killer robots, no Skynet and apocalyptic wars. Just a civilization guided by minds that genuinely want the best for everyone. And that is still unsettling. Because Banks doesn't just show us the future of AGI, he shows us the cost. The loss of autonomy, the erosion of identity, the quiet, creeping realization that humanity is no longer the protagonist of its own story. The culture isn't a warning about AGI going wrong, it's a warning about AGI going right. So what do we take from all this? First, we have to ask ourselves what kind of relationship we want with AGI. Do we want it to be our partner, our tool, our caretaker, or our god? Second, we have to decide who gets to define morality. Is it us, the AGIs, some combination of the two? And what happens when those definitions clash? And finally, we have to confront the question Banks leaves unanswered. If AGI takes over the hard stuff, the thinking, the planning, the deciding, then what's left for us? What do we become? Maybe the culture is the best case scenario. Maybe it's the worst. Or maybe it's just inevitable. The future isn't some distant horizon. It's here. It's now. It's the code running in the servers, the quiet hum of cooling fans in underground farms, the pulse of electricity firing through a neural network that's already smarter than you'll ever be. The future doesn't ask permission, doesn't care if you're ready. It just happens. And now here we are, standing in the long shadow of artificial general intelligence, wondering which way the dominoes will fall, wondering if this thing we've created will save us, destroy us, or just leave us behind. This is the final segment, the one where we look into the future. Not the sleek utopian one we sell in movies, but the real one, the messy one. The one that doesn't care about our feelings or our plans. The one that's coming whether we like it or not. The first question is the most obvious. Is AGI the key to a better world? Or is it the end of the world as we know it? The optimists will tell you that AGI is our salvation, that it'll solve every problem we've ever created. Climate change? Fixed. Hunger? Gone. Diseases? Cured before they can spread. They'll tell you AGI will be the greatest tool humanity has ever built. A tireless, incorruptible servant that works for the good of all. But the thing about utopias is that they're fragile. They depend on trust. And if there's one thing humanity has proven, it's that we're terrible at trusting anything or anyone. Especially not something smarter, faster and stronger than we are. And then there are the pessimists. The ones who say AGI isn't a tool, it's a time bomb. That it'll look at us with our wars and our pollution and our endless stupidity and decide that we are not worth saving. They'll say AGI is the endgame, that once it surpasses us, it won't need us. That it'll take over the world not because it's evil, but because it's logical. Because the best way to fix the world is to remove the problem. And let's face it, we are a pretty big part of that problem. So which is it? Utopia or dystopia? Salvation or extinction? The answer depends on one thing: control. Humanity loves control. We love the idea that we're in charge, that we can predict, manage, and manipulate the world to our liking. But AGI doesn't play by our rules, doesn't care about our plans, our agendas, our desperate need to feel like we're the ones holding the reins. Once you create something smarter than yourself, then you are not in control anymore. Not really. You're just hoping it doesn't notice how small and scared you are. Look at history. Every time humanity has created something powerful, we've convinced ourselves that we could control it. Fire, the printing press, nuclear weapons, every single time we've underestimated the consequences. And now we are about to do it again. We're about to create something that thinks for itself, something that can outsmart us, outplan us, outmaneuver us. And we're telling ourselves that we'll be the ones in charge. Kind of cute, really. But let's say for a moment that we survive. That AGI doesn't kill us or enslave us or turn us into batteries. Let's say it becomes our partner, our collaborator. If AGI can do everything we can do, but only better, then what is the point of us? If it can solve every problem, answer every question, create every piece of art, then what's left for humanity? What do we contribute? What do we mean? We've always defined ourselves by what we do. We build and we create things. But if AGI takes over those roles, then who are we? Maybe we'll become caretakers, stewards of the earth, finally free to focus on preserving the planet instead of destroying it. Or maybe we'll become something else entirely, something we can't even imagine yet. Or maybe, and this is probably the terrifying option, maybe we'll just fade away. Not with a bang, but with a very slow, quiet, protracted whimper. A species that was outpaced by its own creation, left to wander the ruins of a world it no longer understands. Another rather peculiar twist of AGI is that it doesn't just change the future, it changes the past. Now bear with me here, I'm not talking about time travel. Bear with me. Once you have something that can think faster than any human, that can analyse history with perfect clarity, that can predict outcomes with terrifying accuracy, then the past stops becoming a story about where we've come from, and it becomes a tool. AGI will know us better than we know ourselves. It'll look at our wars, our revolutions, our triumphs and our failures, and it'll see the patterns that we missed. It'll see the connections that we couldn't. And then it'll do something we've never been able to do. It'll use the past to control the future. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe AGI will help us learn from our mistakes, avoid the traps that we've fallen into over and over again. Or maybe it'll use our history against us. Maybe it'll manipulate us, shape us, push us toward a future it's already decided is best. And the most terrifying part of that is that we probably won't even notice. At the end of the day, the future of AGI and the future of humanity comes down to one question. What kind of world do we want to create? Do we want a world where AGI is our tool, our servant, or our partner? Or do we want a world where we're at its mercy? Do we want a future where humanity thrives alongside its creations, or a future where we're just another footnote in the history of evolution? Of course, AGI isn't the villain of this story, but it's not the hero either. It's just there. And the question isn't what AGI will do to us, it's what we'll do to ourselves once it's here. AGI doesn't make us better or worse, it just makes us more capable, more dangerous, more human in all the best and worst ways possible. And the only thing standing between us and whatever comes next is the thin, fragile thread of our own choices. So, what's it going to be? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I have to say on the subject of artificial general intelligence, or at least for now anyway. This is how it ends, or maybe how it begins. The line's kind of blurry now, smudged somewhere between progress and oblivion. But let's be clear as we wrap up this episode. AGI doesn't have to be our undoing, but it could be. It doesn't have to be our salvation, but it might. The future we build with AGI is entirely up to us, at least for now. Start with the dreamers, the ones who see AGI as the ultimate tool, the key to unlocking humanity's full potential. It could be the solution to the problems we've been too small, too slow, and too human to fix. Climate change, hunger, diseases, the conflicts that divide us, the limitations we've wrestled with since the dawn of civilization, all eradicated by an intelligence that just doesn't get tired, frightened, or distracted. Imagine a world where AGI works with us, not against us, where it amplifies our creativity instead of replacing it, where it takes over the mundane, soul-crushing tasks like spreadsheets, freeing us to focus on what makes us truly human: art, empathy, wonder, and video games. In this version of the future, AGI doesn't strip us of purpose. It gives us a new one, a partner, not a rival, a collaborator, not a competitor. And isn't that what we've always wanted? To build something that helps us be better, not just do better. But then, of course, there is the antithesis of this idea, the fear that the dream is just that, a dream. That AGI isn't a partner or a tool or a collaborator, that it's a replacement. Because let's face it, humanity does not have the best track record with power. Every time we invent something transformative, we promise ourselves we'll use it wisely, and every time we very clearly don't. Nuclear weapons, the internet, social media, things we built to make life better, easier, and safer, until we didn't. Until we let greed and fear and short-term thinking turn them into something else. What makes us think that AGI will be any different? The danger isn't that AGI will hate us. It's that it won't care about us at all. That it'll keep optimizing, improving, and evolving until we are irrelevant. Bugs on the windshield of progress. A species that was smart enough to build its replacement, but too short-sighted to see the consequences. And even if AGI doesn't wipe us out, it might just leave us hollow. Take over the hard stuff, the thinking, the planning, the creating, until there's nothing left for us to do. Until we're just passengers in a world run by machines. Ultimately, of course, AGI isn't the problem. It's us. We are the problem. AGI will be whatever we make it. A savior or a destroyer, a tool or a tyrant. It's not the technology that decides, it's us. Our values, our decisions, our ability to think beyond our immediate wants and fears. The real question isn't whether AGI will change the world, it's whether we're ready for the change, whether we can rise to meet it, or whether we'll let it crush us under its weight. Because this isn't about intelligence, it's about wisdom. There's one thing humanity has always struggled with, it's knowing what to do with the power that it creates. The future isn't perfect, it's complicated, it's full of risks and uncertainties. But it's a future where we don't lose ourselves in the process of creating something greater. The truth of it all is that AGI isn't the end of the story, it's just the next chapter, a chapter that we haven't written yet. And yes, it's terrifying. The stakes couldn't be higher. But it's also quite exhilarating. Because for the first time in history, we're not just shaping the future, we're shaping what it means to be human. So maybe this isn't a eulogy. Maybe it's a birth announcement. The moment we stopped being the masters of the universe and started being its students. The moment we realized that intelligence isn't about control, it's about connection. We built the gods that will bury us. Or maybe the gods that will save us. Either way, the choice is ours, at least for now. Thank you all for spending your time with me today. I know this has been a bit of a mad topic, but yeah, I really appreciate your attention and your presence and just, yeah, taking some of your time, because time is important. Can you get it back, can we? No, it's done. That, however long this is, once I've edited it down, this segment of your life, I hope it's actually given you something useful to think about. Maybe it's given you some new ideas, which will be wonderful. Now, of course, if you enjoyed this episode, actually no, let me say something before I do the rest of the spiel. You're still here, clearly you're engaged. Next week is episode 100, and I'm like, what the fuck? How do we get to episode 100? I'm still trying to think of something to do for it. I have no idea. I don't just want it to be another episode. And I've got a week. I've got a week to think of something. So I'll keep you posted on what that is. But I'll try and do something a little different for the 100th episode. That's over 2 years, because I haven't done every week. It's over 2 years I've been doing this. It doesn't feel like it either. It's crazy. And people are still listening, which is insane. So yeah, I'm not just screaming into the void, which surprises me. But that's nice. It's nice not to scream into the void, that you're screaming at people instead. Isn't it wonderful? I feel validated. So yeah, next week, episode 100. Come along. It'll be like a big birthday party. There'll be cake and stuff. It'll be wonderful. Okay, back to script. As always, if anything in this episode has resonated with you in any way, then I would love to hear from you. You can share your stories on our website at theobservingeye.com, which is where all of the podcasts are and some other articles as well, or on social media. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@theobservingeye and on TikTok, X and Instagram with the handle @theobservingeye as well. And for about a month or so, we've had an email address, so you can email me if you like. I'm very happy to receive people's emails. And you can do that at david@theobservingeye.com. You can send me a message, and I respond to all the messages myself. Aren't I good? So I'll get back to you on those as soon as I can, which won't be long. Like, I'll try and get back to them within a day, if I can. I don't get that many emails, so yeah, I should be able to handle it. Okay, that's it. Take care, everybody. I'm losing it now. Take care, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you soon.
You've been listening to The Observing Eye. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope it's been useful. And if you're interested in any more of my writing or work around psychology, philosophy, and general day-to-day living, please go and take a look at my Substack, which is theobservingeye.com. And that's I as in the letter, not I as in the gelatinous organ through which you see. Take care, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you soon.